I think we're good now. Let's see. The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BC, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, going live just to talk some boxing, get a solid, like, nice little hour in or so, hour and a half, talk about some things going on in the world of boxing, because there are some very intriguing things to talk about in the world of boxing. And guys, don't mind the painting behind me. I'm not at home right now. I'm at a different location, so just deal with the painting. But the WBC, they got Keith Thurman #1. My eyebrows are kind of raised because I'm like, what's really going on with the WBC, with Keith Thurman, with this welterweight division? We haven't heard anything about Crawford and Spence in quite some time. You got Jaron Ennis, who's the IBF mandatory. So it's all. I gotta be honest, and I'll get to the comments in a second, but I gotta be honest, man. I would not be the least bit surprised if the WBC, or if, let's just say, right, and these are my opening statements, let's just say Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, right, because they had the whole, supposedly, the negotiations, and there's all these rumors about, Crawford being difficult in the negotiations. So let's say if there is any truth to Crawford being difficult in the negotiations, at the negotiating table, then who's to say that PBC doesn't have this as a backup plan? Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence on pay-per-view if the Crawford fight does fall out, because Thurman and Spence is still a good money-making fight. Thurman can sell the fight. Spence is a good draw himself. So if there's any truth to the Crawford negotiations, and Terence Crawford, being difficult and them not being able to come to an agreement, maybe that's why this is. So we'll talk about all that, Keith Thurman's #1 ranking, and all that good stuff. If you got any questions as well, make sure to drop those down below, because I haven't been going live as much recently, so I know there's a lot I missed out on. But before I get into the comments and further getting into the main topic of this live, let me first start out by giving you guys some program reminders. This Saturday we have 2 fight cards. We're gonna have one of the cards I'm most excited for, as my dear friend Isaac Chamberlain takes on Chris Smith for the European and Commonwealth Cruiserweight Championship of the world. Winner of this fight is looking at maybe getting a world title shot next. They both only have 1 loss, and it's against guys that are viewed as elite level cruiserweights, and Richard Riakpo and Lawrence Okoli respectively. So really good fight there this Saturday afternoon. And then at night we got Danny Garcia in his 154-pound debut taking on the very determined Jose Benavidez Jr. Let's see what he has. So I'm gonna try to go live for both of those fights, but I'm definitely going live for the Isaac Chamberlain fight. But I'm shooting for both, so make sure y'all be on the lookout for that. But let's get us some comments, because I know I gotta have at least a couple comments. All right, so shout out to my main man, William Boxing. Shout out to the William Boxing. He says, salute the True School. I just subscribed. I don't agree with you all the kind of things you would say, but I do like to take on many things in the sport. Look, man, and William, first I would say welcome to the channel. Good to have you on board. As far as Canelo goes, look, man, a lot of those extreme a lot of those extreme stands I took on Canelo, I still do I do agree with a lot of those things. I do think he avoided Demetrius Andrade, and there are some things he's done in his career which I don't agree with. But when you kind of look at, I'm to a point, William, where when you look at how long and drawn out the Spence Crawford negotiation is, when you look at how Demetrius Andrade won't fight his freaking mandatory, when you look at a lot of things that other fighters are doing wrong, and then you look at the fact that Canelo Alvarez is managing to stay active. Yes, it's not always against the guys you want to see, but he still fought good fighters. He's fought Caleb Plenty, fought Bivol. I can't be that negative towards him anymore. Yeah, he got exposed by Bivol. Bivol beat him, but listen, these things happen when you fight these top level guys. So really the hate, the quote unquote dislike I have for Canelo Alvarez, it's starting to lower by the day when I look at what other fighters are doing. Not to say that I'm a huge fan of his, but it's not how it once was. Leonard Thomas, what's good, champ? He says, Spence versus Crawford, I don't know if that's happening. If it doesn't, then Spence versus Thurman is a fight I'd like to see, and then we may get to Spence Crawford after that. Spence versus Thurman will definitely be a backup. That's what I'm thinking. When I heard about this being a thing, Keith Thurman being ranked #1 in the WBC, the light bulb immediately went off in my head. they're gonna if the Crawford negotiations fall apart, they're gonna go fight Keith Thurman because they don't gotta fight Jaron Ennis right away because Jaron Ennis just became the mandatory in his last fight against Castillo Clayton. So the IBF rules state that you have with a year of when your mandatory challenger becomes the mandatory to fight them. So they don't gotta fight Jaron Ennis really till next May at the latest. So they could, if this falls through, boom, you got a solid, marketable backup plan in Keith one-time Thurman. So yeah, Crawford needs to accept this, but it's not going to be a 50-50 split. If he doesn't, he ducked, period. Unless the split for Spence is ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know what the split is. I've heard crazy things. A lot of people had these rumors about what is and what isn't going on. I think in a fair, righteous, and just world, we would get Crawford versus Spence, with both fighters being compensated, down the middle, or 40-40 with 20% going to the winner, something like that. But, this is boxing at the pay-per-view level, and Errol Spence Jr. has had millions and millions of dollars pumped into him by PBC and all parties involved, so they're going to look out for him in his best interest. And Crawford's a proud champion. He's not just going to take trash money because he's used to getting paid a lot of money from Bob Arum. So look, I've gotten to the point where I don't care if the fight happens like I used to, but for the sake of boxing and the boxing fans, I would like the fight to happen because I understand that this fight means a lot to a lot of people. So for that reason and for the sake of people not leaving the sport, I would like the fight to happen only for other people. For me, it doesn't matter. I'm just one person. Boxing is bigger than your boy BT. But yeah, absolutely. But let's get into it. Shout out to all 17 of you here. If you have a question, comment, leave it down below, and I'll get to it in a timely manner. Super chat, all that good stuff. Let me know what city, what state, what continent you're watching from. And if you're new to the channel, definitely take the time to subscribe. Now let's get into it, man. Let's get into the main topic of our live today, and I'll get to comments in about 5 to 10 minutes. So just bear with me. But today, right? I just found this out like this morning. I know what happened. I believe it was yesterday they said this, but I just found out about this morning. So these are the WBC rankings for those that don't know. For those that don't know, and if you don't know, then you really don't know anything about the welterweight division. Errol Spence Jr. is your WBC welterweight champion. 28 wins, no losses, 21 knockouts. His name's been linked to Terence Crawford for forever and a day. And these are the new rankings. And wouldn't you guys know? Look who's number one. Your boy Keith one-time Thurman is the number one ranked contender in the WBC. Now, we have to ask ourselves questions as boxing fans. What does this mean for the sport of boxing? What does this mean for the welterweight division? What does this mean for Crawford versus Spence moving forward? First and foremost, we all know that the WBC is the most powerful governing body in the sport of boxing. We know that they're the most influential. We know that they have the most money. We know that they have the most history. So if you can ever, as a fighter, get into a position for one sanctioning body, this would want to be the one that you'd be number one for because of the influence they have. And Keith Thurman is a former... You got to also remember this, guys. You may think this is not an important thing, but this is a very important thing in the eyes of sanctioning bodies. These sanctioning bodies always give guys that have previously held their titles, whether it be in the weight class that they rank them in or previous weight classes, they will give these guys higher standing. So Keith Thurman was a guy that was a former WBC welterweight champion. So he's a former WBC welterweight champion. We still don't have Crawford versus Spence announced. There's these rumors swirling around that Spence and Crawford can't come to an agreement in a negotiation. So I know I haven't really seen anybody talk about this, and I'm not saying they haven't, but I'm going to get out in front of it now and say this looks like a backup. This looks like a fight that PBC is going to pivot right into if Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence can't get done. But look, I'm optimistic. Not for me, because this isn't about me. You guys, I've already drew my line in the sand, and I've told you guys how I feel about Crawford versus Spence. This isn't about me. This is about the boxing fans. A lot of boxing fans want to see this fight. A lot of boxing fans are clamoring for this fight. You go on YouTube, all you see is content about Crawford, Spence, Spence, Crawford. So and not just that. I really feel like if we're gonna move into, after a lot of thought, if we're gonna move into the next generation of welterweights, we need to make sure we put a definitive end to this little generation of welterweights, so that we can it's a lot easier to give the throne to a guy like a Boots Ennis or whoever comes after that. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Keith Thurman, the number 1 ranked contender in the WBC. Now, Keith Thurman has been a guy that, you know, this is a guy that was once the talk of the division. This is a guy that everybody once thought was going to be the guy in this division for years to come. But then, you know, injuries set in. He's been a guy that has been very fragile as far as, like, you know, getting injured a lot, pulling out of fights. Inactivity has plagued his career. I mean, look, if we get started from the Shawn Porter fight, right? He fought once in 2016. He fought once in 2017. He didn't fight at all in 2018. He fought twice in 2019, and then he had a 2-year layoff and didn't fight till just this previous February against Mario Barrios. So if we talk about Thurman when he fought Barrios, he didn't look the most impressive when he fought Mario Barrios. He didn't like light the world on fire, but he got a win, a solid win. He still looked vulnerable, and that's the one thing about Keith Thurman is, like, he's always going to be in exciting fights because he's always vulnerable. And I think that part of him, right? You got to look at what's going on right now, or what isn't going on right now, because, you know, Terence Crawford and Errol Spence has not been announced yet, and now this has happened. So what are us, the boxing fans, supposed to think? I mean, let's look at this, right? Are we on screen share? Yeah, we're on screen share. So if we go to screen share, right? I'm on screen share. Showtime Boxing just recently posted this whole video with Terence Crawford, you know, on their platform, and this has caused a lot of people to go crazy about, you know, the prospect of maybe Terence Crawford fighting Errol Spence next. Because the question is, why would Showtime post something about Terence Crawford if the intent is not to make Crawford versus Spence next? Well, while Thurman versus Spence could also be an option, let's not rule out, is Crawford versus Thurman a fight they're going to look into? Are they going to further push back and continue to marinate Errol Spence and Crawford, Because the reality is, you know, if Terence fights Keith, that would be his first fight on the PBC stable. It would be a guy that would add more credibility to his welterweight resume, which a lot of the Errol Spence, you know, fans like to go ahead and say isn't that good to begin with. So if you look at a run of fighting Shawn Porter, you know, Keith Thurman back to back, that could be the perfect way to go into an Errol Spence fight. But are the boxing fans going to be willing to wait long enough for that to happen? That's really the question. That's really the question, truthfully, that I want to know from you guys. So you guys can let me know that down below. If they make Crawford versus Thurman instead of Crawford versus Spence next, will you still be patient? Let's say they fight like in, I don't know, November of 2022. Would you guys be patient enough to wait for Crawford versus Spence in April or March of 2023? Let me know in the comments down below. But there's so many things that could happen with this. I don't think that he was put there by accident. I think one way or the other, Keith Thurman is going to be fighting somebody soon, because he's still Keith Thurman. He was a guy that held the WBC title, so he has standing within the WBC, you know. And then you got to factor in the Jaron Ennis thing. Now, actually, no. Before we get to Jaron Ennis, let me go back to the comments. Because I see some comments. So we got my man Brandon D. Hooker. Shout out to my man 50 grand out there in H-Town. Brandon, what's good, champ? He says, much respect, BT. Happy to be tuning into this live, bro. At this point, I see the powers that be using Thurman as a gatekeeper for the rest of his career. What do you think? You know, it's unfortunate to say that, but I agree with you. You know, Keith Thurman's only lost to Manny Pacquiao, so he really shouldn't have the perspective of people looking at him as a gatekeeper. But boxing's a cruel, hard, and arduous business, and momentum is a real thing. Keith Thurman had all the... See, Keith Thurman, right? He had all the things that Crawford and Spence desperately lack. And what I mean by that is, I'm not talking about as far as in the ring. I'm talking about as far as outside of the ring. That guy has a $1 million mouthpiece. He knows how to sell fights. He knows how to get people interested. I mean, you guys tell me, have you guys ever heard a boring Keith Thurman interview? You know, he's very good about breaking down his fights, other fights, what happens to him, everything. He's just a very smart, intelligent, magnetic guy. And I think he really pissed away his opportunity to rule this division and be the star that boxing needed, because of the injuries, and I even think a bit of a loss of hunger for the sport. But yeah, he's gonna be used. I think whether it's Crawford's first fight on PBC, whether it's Errol Spence fighting him because the Terence Crawford Spence negotiations fell through and they need more time to negotiate, or whatever the case may be, or whether it's Jaron Ennis trying to get that first big step up name on his resume. I do think Keith Thurman will be used as an opponent, and that's what it is. And it'll be up to him to win the fight so that he can prove to all of us, the boxing fans, the boxing world, and just the world in general, that he is no B-side fighter. You know what I'm saying? I remember you said that Spence was ducking Crawford, although he said he would get to him after he get all the belts. Now he sent him a fair contract from what it seems, and Crawford ain't taking it. Well, we don't know. We don't know what the actual splits are. None of us are in the negotiating room. But I'm just saying the rumors. I don't want to get into like the who ducked who talk, because truthfully I don't care. But I do think I think Errol Spence avoided the fight for a lot of years, and that's why we had to go through all this to get here. Okay, now if Crawford at the 11th hour boxed, then it's his fault. But I think we're getting to a point now where I think I can say they both have a role to play in as to why the fight hasn't happened. It's not really Spence duck Crawford or Crawford duck Spence. It's both their faults at this point. Boxing Nerd 101 says nobody wants to see Keith no more. He ducked Ennis and Bud. Well, I disagree with you. I like Keith Thurman. He's always in exciting fights, and I would like to see him against any of these guys. Just not now. Not now. Later on, no, Ennis can happen now, but I'm saying Crawford and Spence, needs to happen for the sake of boxing and the fans. And yeah, that's what it is. We got my man William. William says Spence would drop the belts than rather fight Thurman, all because of Thurman ducking Spence early in his career. But if Spence did that, William, then he'd be a hypocrite. He'd be the biggest hypocrite on earth, because he was getting mad at Keith Thurman, right? He was calling out Keith Thurman when he didn't have a belt, and then he got a belt and he was still calling out Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman still didn't want to fight him. And it's like he did the same thing with Crawford. Did the same shit with Crawford. They are not going to make Thurman versus Crawford before they make Spence versus Thurman. I mean, listen, man. Crazier things have happened. I'm telling you right now, if they're putting Keith Thurman #1 in the WBC, that is not a good sign. If you're someone who's like hell bent, like, oh my God, Crawford-Spence is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we need to see this fight, and this is the best thing since Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns, all these crazy things I hear on YouTube. If you're hell bent on seeing this fight, that is not a good sign. I'm telling you right now. You can choose to believe me or not believe me. That is not a good sign. Seeing a guy who was previously WBC champion, who has legitimate high standing with that organization, become the #1 contender after doing nothing but beating Mario Barrios, that is not a good sign. That's all I'm trying to highlight. That is all I'm trying to highlight. 704 Joe, what's good, champ? He says, after 2022, I'm just about done with this fight. Hey, I'm already done with this fight. The only reason I'm talking about it is because you guys keep talking about it, and people are going to ask me about it, so I might as well talk about it. Thanks for hosting True School. I dig the content. Thank you, William. Yeah, check out. Appreciate people like yourself that watch the channel, and all you guys that are here right now. Taking your time on this wonderful Monday afternoon. Hope everybody's week is off to a good start, and if it's not off to a good start, then it's okay, because you still got 6 more days to right the ship. Michael Ryan Piss, my main man out there in Alabama. What's good, champ? Good to see you. Good to see everybody here. But yeah, this is not good news. It really isn't. Now, as far as I want to get to Jaron Ennis, right? Because he's like the guy that nobody wants to talk about. Jaron Ennis, probably one of the most exciting fighters in boxing, let alone the welterweight division. But he's the IBF mandatory right now. The IBF rules clearly state, right, and I'm reading. The reason I'm reading you guys the rules is because I want to tell you guys there's going to be a large contingent of people out there that are going to say, and mind you, I'd be one of them, but rationally speaking, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, well, if Spence versus Crawford doesn't get made, then the IBF should just mandate Spence versus Ennis, right? And the thing is, they don't necessarily have to, because if you go by their rules, right, it says right here in the IBF mandatory challenger rules, and this is Rule 5 in their own rule book. Okay, it says A heavyweight champion shall defend their title within a year after earning it in a sanctioned 12-round contest against the leading available contender as designated by the championship chairman. And this part here is what is the relevant part. The same applies to all other weight classes other than they must defend their belt within 9 months of earning it rather than 12 months. You know what I'm saying? So, Errol Spence Jr., his IBF mandatory is Jaron Ennis. Jaron Ennis just became the mandatory because like the Castillo-Clayton fight was a final eliminator. It was an eliminator. So when he beat Clayton, he became the IBF mandatory, and that was on what? That was on May the 14th. So it says right here. So that was May 14th. It says right here that they got basically 9 months within earning it. Okay, so what? 9 months from May is what? February. So Errol Spence would have till February of next year to fight Jaron Ennis, right? So he can't fight Jaron Ennis. He don't gotta fight Jaron Ennis right away. So he can fight Keith Thurman. Maybe he can get an exemption if he fights Keith Thurman, right? Maybe he can file an exemption with the IBF next year to not fight Boots and make the car fight happen in the first quarter of 2023. There's ways around it. I'm trying to tell you guys. There's ways that this fight can get pushed back, and I'm just trying to let you guys know. I'm trying to give you all a large picture. For me, I was once a huge. I'm still a big Terence Crawford fan. He's one of my favorite fighters, but I don't really have a lot of emotional investment in Crawford-Spence. So I'm just trying to give you guys the large picture as to what this really means or what this could mean. You know, how this affects all the different fighters in the weight class. Let me see. Let's go back to these comments. Shout out to everybody here. If Bud keeps pricing himself out, don't be surprised when Spence moves up. That's also a great point. Williams out here making great points. That's a great point. You know, Errol Spence Jr. has said it many times. And he's always, listen, Errol Spence has always been a big welterweight. He's always been a guy that, when you look at him, when you look at the frame he walks around with for a guy at that weight class, he's not a small welterweight. He's not a guy that makes the weight comfortably. He does struggle to get down to welterweight. You'd have to think after all these years of campaigning there and his body getting bigger and maturing that, you know, that time to go up to 154 is slowly but surely coming ahead. Let me see. Big up to Boosie and Boots. They're up next. So yeah, man. Look, I'm looking very forward to Boosie and Boots just getting their shot. You know, gotta keep being patient, waiting their turn. But you know, one thing about Boots, when I was in Philly and had a chance to interview him, you know, I asked him. I asked Jaron. I was like, hey man, you get into boxing, you start boxing because you love the sport, and then you get to a certain level and it becomes more of a business, and these guys aren't anxious to fight you. Does that ever discourage you? And his answer to me was, no, not really. You know, it just actually makes it better for me because I'm still getting better in the gym. So he's got the right mindset. His father got him centered in a great way, and you know, when his time comes, he's gonna reign for a long time. Ain't nobody forcing Spence to fight Thurman. If that fight gets made, it's because Spence wants it to. Well, if boxing's a very, very petty sport sometimes. If there's any truth to Crawford actually not, you know, making unrealistic demands or anything like that, which in my opinion, right, in my humble opinion, I don't think there's any such thing as an unrealistic demand in this fight. I really think the fight should be 50-50 or 40-40 with 20% going to the winner. But you know, they're not gonna see it that way because Errol Spence is the PBC guy. The fight's gonna be on PBC. They pumped a lot of money into him, so it's gonna be hell will damn near have to freeze over for Terence Crawford to get a 50-50 split with PBC and Spence. That's the objective truth. Should he get a 50-50 split? I think so because they both need each other. And Errol Spence Jr., while he is the bigger draw, he's not such a big star to where I feel like he could big time Terence Crawford. That's just me though. Yeah. Brandon Diogo says, shout out to Pops 2 BT, the last of a dying breed. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was looking forward to his Spanish interviews. What happened with that? Well, we had a Jason Rosario interview scheduled last week. Jason Rosario canceled on us and never got back. He gave us a time. We showed up for that time, and then he just kind of canceled on us. So Jason Rosario was on some BS recently, but you know, Pop's still gonna do Spanish interviews. He did a couple in New York City with Wbc Ramirez and whatnot. And yeah, the plan is to have Pops do more of those Spanish interviews in the future. So yeah, it's definitely be on the lookout. 60-40, listen, 60-40 at this point. If they really want to get this fight done, I think 60-40 would be fair. I think at this point it'd be fair. It'd be fair to make the fight happen. I don't think it's fair in the grand scheme of things. I think it should be 50-50 or it should be 40-40 with 20 going on to the winner. But if they don't want to get off their high horse, then if I was in Crawford's shoes, I would take the 60-40, right? Take the 60-40, beat him, and then, you know, get asked for more on the rematch. But, you know, these guys, that's a problem with a lot of boxers today. I'm not just talking about Spence versus Crawford. I'm talking about boxers at all levels. I'm talking about champions. I'm talking about prospects. I'm talking about, you know, pay-per-view stars. A lot of these guys, they want everything to be perfect before they take it. They sign a contract. And listen, they should, because it's their career at the end of the day. But the reality is, in life don't work that way. You're not gonna have everything your way 100% of the time. Life don't work that way. You know, like even Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather used to, talked about this before. Like when he was talking about his own fighters, he would say like, a lot of these fighters these days are too spoiled. They're not willing to take short money and believe in their skills to win a certain fight, to win a particular fight, to get themselves into that position of power so that they can call the shots. They don't want to do that. And you know, and because of that, that's why it's so hard to get fights done these days. It's hard. It's hard for, you know, these guys to fight. It's hard for Beterbiev and Bivol to fight each other, but that's for different reasons. Obviously, that's because of the whole promoter thing. You know, but just you know, I don't think the fight. I don't like. It's hard for me to really. It's hard for me to see Crawford and Spence not happening this year, because I really do believe like people. If it doesn't happen this year, a lot of people would just be fed up, because, you know, how much longer can you marinate this fight? How much longer can, you know, you continue to make people wait for a fight that they want? At some point, you know, let's say, right, if Crawford-Spence doesn't happen in this calendar year, and let's just say Jaron Ennis has a fight against whoever, and let's say Jaron Ennis gets a knockout against whoever, that's gonna make his stock go up, and then Jaron Ennis is gonna have more people siding with him and wanting him to, you know, get his shot. And then people won't even care about Crawford-Spence, because they'll actually arrive to the conclusion that I've arrived to, which is that Crawford versus Spence isn't even number 1 versus number 2 anymore. All right, it's getting to a point where the more you keep allowing these guys like Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis to fight, the more that gap closes, and the more people may start to say, well, wait a second, Crawford and Spence, they're great fighters, and they're more established fighters than Ennis and Virgil Ortiz, but, you know, are they really the 2 best welterweights anymore? People will start to say that. Mark my words, if this fight does not get done this year, people will get to the point where they start making comments the way I make those comments. Promise you. My man Gorgura says the anticipation of Crawford versus Spence has started to fizzle out a little, like Floyd versus Pac did years after years of waiting. That's true, but see, the thing that neither one of these guys have going for them that Mayweather and Pacquiao had for him, Pacquiao has an entire country behind him. Like when he fights, the whole country in the Philippines stops. They stop what they're doing. They make sure they all make it a family affair. They get together, they watch the fights. Crime goes down when he fights. Listen, Crawford and Spence are great fighters, but, you know, Errol Spence ain't stopping no crime in Dallas, and Terence Crawford ain't stopping no crime in Omaha. Or maybe they do, but what I'm saying is they don't have that country backing them like that. You know, they're still outside of like the hardcore boxing fans. They're still both relative unknowns. That's why I've been trying to tell people, like, people have been telling me, you know, True School, you're a freaking hater. This is the biggest fight in boxing. I'm like, no, it's not. If we're talking about like pay-per-views and money and numbers, it's not. This fight is like a notch and a half below like what Barrera versus Morales was when they fought like the first time. Because like back in those days, they would do like 300,000 buys, 400,000 buys, you know, and those were considered, you know, not big pay-per-views back then. These guys, I'm not sure. I question if they would even do like 600K, which you may say 600K is a big number, but when you talk about 2 undefeated American fighters fighting for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world, with all the hoopla and hype that they've been getting here on YouTube and in the media, this should be a fight that gets close to a million buys, but it won't come close to that. So these guys don't have the country that Manny Pacquiao had backing them like he had, and they don't have that that hatred factor. Like, nobody really hates Errol Spence and Terence Crawford enough to say, hey, I want to pay money to see them lose. You know, on a general scale, you know, Floyd had people hating him, ready to like fork over hundreds of dollars to watch him lose, and then obviously he never did. But I'm just saying, like, he marketed himself in such a way that people paid to see him lose, and then he didn't lose. You know, so these guys don't even do interviews like that on that often. They don't really, you know, ingratiate themselves to the public like that. That's why I'm saying, like, how can you guys call this the biggest fight in boxing when these two don't really do a lot of interviews? When they do interviews, they're very kind of like guarded these days. They weren't like that earlier in their career, because I had a chance to interview Spence and Crawford like earlier in their careers, like 6 years ago. But as the status has risen, as the, you know, accomplishments have risen, you know, they become a lot more guarded and whatnot, and that's what it is. So I don't really think the fight is as big as people think it is because of that. That's one of my reasons, is that Crawford and Spence, the same speaking points I made for Demetrius Andrade in my last couple of videos. Like he doesn't necessarily go out of his way to do interviews and keep himself relevant and get people excited about him, and go on different talk shows. You know, these guys don't do that type of thing, you know. And you would think, right, like Al Heyman has Errol Spence fighting on what, PBC? So how come Errol Spence ain't on like all these late night talk shows? And like, why is he not doing that? You know, so just food for thought. If Spence versus Crawford don't happen, Spence is moving up already. He said he ain't fighting Thurman. We'll see, man. I mean, listen, I personally don't think he would fight Thurman, but with Thurman being WBC #1 contender, and with that being a big money fight, they say money talks and bullshit walks. And one thing about Thurman is he knows how to sell a fight. I wouldn't rule it out. I know what you're saying. He did say that, but I wouldn't rule it out. Do you think Tszyu will give Charlo a more competitive fight than Brian Castano? That's a great question. I would like to think so. You know, Tszyu is bigger than Castano. He's stronger than Castano. My only question with Tim Tszyu is, I'm not so sure if Tim Tszyu has the stamina to give him the kind of problems Castano did. Because, you know, if you watch some of these Tim Tszyu fights, when he gets to the back half of the fight, he does tend to fade a little bit, and he starts pushing his punches. And I really feel like if that winds up being the case here in a fight against Charlo, you know, 7 months from now when they fight, which is crazy. I never seen a fighter win the Undisputed Championship, or win a big fight, and then announce a fight, but it's like so far out. You know, it's 7 months away. But anyway, if that becomes an issue for him moving forward, I really do think Charlo will exploit that and hurt him in the later rounds, because he's shown himself to be one of the very few fighters at the championship level that can hurt you all 12 rounds. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Shout out to my main man, Red Glove Militant. Hope all is well with you, champ. God bless. He says, what's up, True School? And the thousands of the untouchable True School Sports subscribers. That's right, champ. Good to see you. Hope all is well. And hope you've been grieving and doing better with the whole situation you had. Who is the harder fight for Boots in your opinion, Spence or Crawford? Great question. See, that can go one of two ways. Spence is very physically strong, and I can see Spence's volume jab, if he's able to close the gap on Boots, I can see Spence's volume jab giving him some problems early. You know, Spence is a guy that gets better as the fight goes along. But so is Crawford, and Crawford's a guy that fights better the more you hit him. Like, the harder you hit him, the better he starts fighting. If you guys, I don't know if you guys ever noticed that, but when Crawford gets hit, especially if you hit him hard and you drop him, he fights back even better. So personally, for me, I think Spence or harder. I think Crawford's the harder fight. I think Crawford has more layers, more dimensions to him, and I think his ability to counter punch on the move will keep him in the fight a little bit longer than Spence would if they fought. You know. By the way, if Crawford versus Spence gets made, I'm 100% sure it'll be done in Saudi Arabia, for the simple fact that Kinahan is still out there, and I remember Crawford being backed by MTK Global after Bob. You know, it's crazy that you bring that up, because a lot of people said a while ago that one of the reasons this fight wasn't going to happen was that what you just mentioned right there. You know, Kinahan was going to be a big topic of discussion. He was going to be a big speaking point. You know, I think the Kinahan thing for Terence is just so that Terence can get the most, you know, fair and equitable purse split in his favor, you know. But at the same time, it's like Al's not gonna want Kinahan in the negotiations or involved at all. Period. So I think you may be onto something, you know. So how sad would that be? Could you guys imagine how sad would that be? You know, how sad would it be if two of the brightest stars in American boxing, in probably the biggest fight that American boxing has delivered in years, fight in Saudi Arabia? Could y'all imagine that? Could y'all imagine how soulless that would be? Could y'all imagine how soulless that would be to see two American fighters fighting in Saudi Arabia instead of fighting in the USA? Because there's this growing belief in boxing now that Saudi Arabia is becoming the new Las Vegas. You know, Las Vegas is like not played out, but like with the, you know, Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Dubai and all these different Middle Eastern countries putting a lot of money into the tourism department, building, you know, facilities and stadiums and arenas, state of the art. They apparently they treat everybody great, because every time someone fights there, they say they say that all the fighters and, you know, all the events, people in the events get treated well. So I'm just saying, boxing maybe moving in a direction now where, okay, obviously we know that the entertainment capital of the world is the USA, but Saudi Arabia and the Middle East and the UAE is becoming a bigger player in the sport, you know. So something to consider, you know, if this fight does wind up somehow happening over there, you know. Shout out to my man Ali. Ali says, fuck Errol Spence. He thought Thurman's leftovers when he was calling. He fought Thurman's leftovers when he was calling Thurman. He wasn't nobody. Yeah. He did fight, you know, the guys that Keith. I mean, he fought Porter. He fought Danny. You know, guys Keith beat years ago. So you do got a point. I agree with you. Earl knows that Thurman is not an easy fight. He's not. Listen, the problem with a lot of boxing fans today is that they mistake being vulnerable with being easy to beat. Now, Keith Thurman is vulnerable, but he sure as hell ain't easy to beat, because if he was easy to beat, somebody else besides Manny Pacquiao would have did it before Pacquiao got to him, and they didn't do that for him. Keith Thurman is one of the smartest welterweights in the division. He got one of the best jabs in the welterweight division. And he's got one of the highest ring IQs in the welterweight division. His only knock and his only problem is his durability and his inability to fight on a consistent basis. You know. Hustle Man says, Inoue versus Coolboy, who wins? And break it down. You have some good knowledge of breaking down fights without being biased, so I respect that. Well, I appreciate you, champ. Good fight, you know. There's a lot of things to consider with that fight. First of all, while Inoue is the bigger puncher, he's moving up to 122, which I think would be a good move for him, because he's going to be, I think, stronger at that weight. But at the same time, while he may be stronger, he's going to be fighting bigger men, Coolboy being one of them. And Stephen Fulton has shown time and time again that he can beat guys at their own game. Now, mind you, Stephen Fulton has if you look at the guys he's beaten, like the Angelo Leos, Brandon Figueroas, Danny Ramons, they all have like the pressure style, the Mexican pressure style, and he's been able to crack that code pretty well, you know, in his title reign so far. This, to me, I think will be a different challenge for him, because Inoue is not a pressure fighter per se. He's a boxer puncher. So and he's a counter puncher too, and he's quick, and he's sharp, and he's strong. So with that being said, I think it's a pick-em fight. At 122, I would actually lean slightly towards Stephen Fulton. I would. I think he's shown in recent fights that he can be strong in the later half of the fights against full-fledged 122-pounders. I think that would be a fight where you might see Fulton get hurt in the early rounds. I think Fulton will make the adjustments, use that speed, use that jab to outbox Inoue, and I think he'd win a very close decision. Very close. Like I'm talking like a majority or a split type thing. But listen, that can go either way. Inoue could knock him the hell out. But it'd be intriguing to see how Fulton deals with an intelligent counterpuncher like Inoue, an intelligent, explosive counterpuncher like Inoue. I personally, look, I'd rather stop talking about it and just see it get made, but that's going to be difficult on its own because Bob Arum don't sound like he want that fight, and PBC seems to have their own plans about Fulton going up to 126 to fight, do a Brandon Figueroa rematch or something like that. So yeah, Bud Crawford is sitting on the sideline watching the parades go by. Shit, you might be right, champ. You might be right, cause nothing's happening with that fight. So, do you want to see Keith fight Lara? He's not asking for $10 million to fight Lara, but asking for $10 million to fight Jaron Ennis. No, I don't want to really see him fight Lara. I think that's a very pointless fight. As far as the Jaron Ennis thing, listen, that's just boxing 101. He's pricing himself out. He don't want that young smoke. He trying to avoid the young lions and get those big paydays against the guys from, quote unquote his generation. So, I would like to see him fight Jaron Ennis. I think that'd be the most ideal fight, but he wants the retirement check. He's not. No. I agree with you. He's not being reasonable at all. If he's asking for $10 million, he's not at all. True School, have you seen the trailer for Mike Tyson's series on Hulu? I haven't yet. I haven't. Put me on game. I don't know much about that. Right? I don't know much about that, but I'm going to have to check that out. Thank you for putting me on game. Oh, no. Not the Florida crew riding out Keith sometime, none time Thurman. No, man. Listen, Keith Thurman is from the fake part of Florida. He's from Tampa. Respect to all my friends in Tampa. Respect to everybody in other parts of Florida that aren't South Florida. But listen, he ain't from South Florida, so I got no reason to fanboy for him like that. I think he's a good fighter. Yeah, it's been way too long, champ. Way too long. Trying to get back in the rhythm of doing this before August starts. Keith only got $750K for Mario fight. How is he worth $10 million is my question. Well, he's not. He's not worth $10 million. Listen, Keith versus Ennis is not. There's not even $10 million in that fight combined. I think if you were to add up what Boots should get paid in that fight and what Keith should get paid in that fight, they're both of them combined wouldn't be $10 million, let alone one of them. And Red Glove Militant says, here's a morale boost. Wait, hold on. He said, where is he? He said, and here's a morale boost. Go Panthers. That's right. Shout out to the greatest show on ice, says Disney on Ice, the Florida Panthers. All right. My man, whatchamacallit, what's his name? Matthew Tkachuk. Panthers out here making big moves. Was unfortunate they traded Huberto, personal favorite of mine, but you have to do what's best for the team and to position yourself to win a Stanley Cup. And I want to see the Panthers win a Stanley Cup before I die. So good. I thought it was a good move. Ali Rashad says, I still think the WBC would make Errol versus Thurman. Thurman vacated the belt. Errol or Crawford, one of them got to go through Thurman. That's what I'm saying. You can't just, when it comes to anything regarding Thurman and the WBC, he won that belt. He's got good standing with them. It'd be foolish to just write off what could potentially happen so far as Keith getting in the way of a Thurman versus Spence fight. Just saying, consider the point, guys. I still favor McKinson to outpoint Virgil if he can take Virgil's power. What do you think? Man, you know what? I haven't even thought about the fight in that way because all I can think about is the Virgil power. But if Michael McKinson can take Virgil's power, which is a huge if, because the biggest puncher he's fought so far was Chris Congo, and that was the best performance of his career. And Chris Congo can crack. Chris Congo is a big, strong guy. I've seen him in person. Big, strong guy. If he can take Virgil's power, then the only thing he needs to really worry about is the Virgil Ortiz piston-like jab, and then the fight becomes a battle of jabs. Can he offset the rhythm of Virgil's jabs? Can he mix the pattern of his boxing up enough to neutralize that jab? That's really the only two things McKinson got to do. His fight plan is very simple, but it's going to be difficult because Virgil's a very good fighter. He's got to first and foremost take away the jab of Virgil Ortiz so he's not able to plant his feet. Secondly, should he get touched with anything big, which I think he will at some point because McKinson does have defensive lapses at times, he has to have the willingness internally once he gets punched and the durability with his chin to take that. And if he can, listen, I wouldn't rule anything out. I would say McKinson have a great chance to beat Virgil if that's the case. Let me see. I appreciate your exclusive content. I subscribe at the Tim Bradley and Rashidi Elliott. Well, thank you, man. Welcome to the channel. I would also advise you, Boxer Nerd, to go through the archives. Go check out the old Riddick Bowe interviews, the Holyfield interviews. Those are the classics. Go check Don Turner. A lot of interviews done here over the years. I would advise you to go check out. But yeah, thank you, man. Welcome. Keith is from that era where they paid you for nothing but some network TV. Yeah, man. I mean, you gotta remember, Keith Thurman fought on the original PBC card. So when Al Heyman got all that hedge fund money from Waddell and Reed, and they were just giving it out like it was nothing, like it was a napkin, at a restaurant, just giving it out like it was nothing. He fought Robert Guerrero and made. Let me see. What did he make that fight? I wonder if they got those purses. Keith Thurman, purse, Robert Guerrero. I want to know what he made against Robert Guerrero. What kind of money was Keith pulling back then? If they had those numbers, he didn't make crazy. He didn't make crazy money. He made 1.5 million when he fought Guerrero, so it's not as crazy as I thought it would be. But yeah, that was still good. Keith was at a stage of his career where he was still building himself, so 1.5 wasn't bad for that stage of his career. But my main man out there in Las Vegas, Rafael Calvo, he says, on a scale from 0 to 10, what are the chances of Kambosos beating Haney in a rematch? I think that his chances are slim. I would say on a scale, I'll give George a 3. I'll give him a 3. I think George is gonna, he's a prideful man. This is a guy that, as he's told you guys many times, he was underdog in a lot of fights. He went to the backyard of a lot of champions. He's the same guy that before we even knew his name, he paid his money out of his own pocket that he barely had to fly to America to spar all the biggest and baddest fighters at Wildcard Gym, like Jose Ramirez. And he proved himself in these gyms in America. That's really how he became Pacquiao's sparring partner, the reputation, the old school way. So he's a proud man with great character, and he lost that fight in such a one-sided fashion that I would think he's gonna train his ass off some more, and any corners he may have cut, which you have to think he maybe didn't train as hard as because he didn't even make the weight on the first attempt. So I'm expecting George to make the weight on the first attempt. I'm expecting a more determined George Kambosos, but ultimately, look, I like George, and I would love to see George get the titles back because I like George Kambosos. I'm a George Kambosos fan. I like what he stands for. I like his story. But that kid Devin Haney, man, he showed me a lot that fight. The feints, the long jab. Unless your last name is Stevenson, from 130 to 135, you're not gonna outbox Devin Haney. So that's how I feel about it. They made some big time money moves signing that 24. Yes, man, a 24-year-old Matthew Tkachuk with a lot of confidence, a lot of nastiness that the Panthers need. I'm really thinking this is gonna be the year. Maybe not this year, but sometime in the next couple of years, the Panthers are winning a Stanley Cup. So I'm excited about it. Future Hall of Fame. Yeah. To the guy earlier that said he just subbed to the channel. If you like basketball, I interviewed Steph Curry. Back in my NBA days. I remember when the Danny Garcia fight was getting something like 4 million views. Yeah, when he fought Keith Thurman, they fought on network television and CBS, and PBC pumped in so many marketing dollars into promoting that fight. I knew that fight with Garcia and Thurman was big because my grandma, who doesn't know nothing about boxing, she don't watch sports, she don't watch nothing but telenovelas on Telemundo. All right, that's all she watched. When she told me, I watched Garcia Thurman because I saw it on TV and I thought of you and I wanted to talk about it with you. When she told me that's when I knew Thurman Garcia was a big fight. Al Heyman knows how to run down the business. I think Errol versus Crawford ain't happening. Something big is coming up. That's what I think. I think so. I think something really out of left field is coming up. Maybe it's Thurman versus Spence. Maybe it's Thurman versus Crawford. But something's happening. Maybe they're gonna do a 4-man tournament with Crawford, Spence, Thurman, Ennis. Who knows? The only boxers I respect is Usyk, Haney, Shakur, and Fulton, and Bam Rodriguez. Crawford and Spence and PBC are some hoes. K Diamond and Bivon Beterbiev. No love for Charlo. Hey, you should respect all the fighters, man. Listen, I respect all the fighters, even the fighters that you guys think I hate, like Canelo and Crawford and Spence and all these kind of guys. I don't hate none of these guys. They're all these guys put in a lifetime's worth of work just for us to even know what their names are, let alone achieve what they've achieved in the sport. So I have the utmost respect for all the fighters. I demand that I want them to hold themselves to higher standards, and I really feel like the standards in boxing have never been lower than they are right now. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you get Ryan Garcia, these guys that do 200, 300 pay-per-view buys, and they call them superstars. I just became a Sonny Edwards fan, bro, after watching him spar a troll. What other champions are in his division? At 112, you got a lot of good champions in this division. You got Junto Nakatani, who is the younger brother of Masayoshi Nakatani, who fought Teofimo Lopez and Verdejo. Very good fighter. Southpaw, high volume puncher, power in both hands, really good. You got him. You got the Ukrainian Olympian Artem Dalakian, and then you got who's the other champion? I know I'm missing one. You got him. You got Nakatani, Artem Dalakian, Sonny Edwards, and I think one of the belts might be vacant, but don't quote me on that. I'm gonna check just to make sure. 112. So yeah, Kazuto Ioka. Oh, that's 115. 112 is Julio Cesar Martinez. So yeah, Julio Cesar Martinez, Junto Nakatani, Artem Dalakian. Those are the other champions. So, you know, he was supposed to fight. Whatchamacallit? Julio Cesar Martinez, but he pulled out the fight, so that's what it was. Let me see. Oh man. Oh no. Ghost. Here we go. He says, BT, did you see my dog Stephen Shaw on that card? I still got him over Phillip, by the way. Light work. I had to actually catch up. I didn't watch the Joel Gonzalez versus Isaac Dogbay card. I had to still watch that card, and I still have to watch the fight card from a couple weeks ago on Pro Box with Caesar Francis and Ray Beltran. So I got some boxing to watch, but listen, Stephen Shaw, good, a really good technical fighter. You know, the big thing for Stephen Shaw is he's got to stay in shape. He's got to stay in shape, stay at a good weight, don't balloon up too much, and he'll give himself a chance against a lot of heavyweights. Now, you mentioned Filip Hrgovic. Absolutely not. He getting iced in 8 rounds or less. That's not what he wants, champ. Especially now that you got Filip Hrgovic already has the Olympic amateur pedigree. He already has all the world-class sparring that in the world, from being 17, sparring Wilder and Klitschko and these kind of guys. Guys very well-conditioned, extremely disciplined and dedicated to the game. Stephen Shaw beat him. The combination of size, skill, power. Stephen Shaw is good, and Stephen Shaw might upset some other guys, but Filip Hrgovic ain't one of them. But listen, if that fight gets made, it'll be fun, and me and you can go back and forth. Michael Manning says, you have been on it all along. That fight seems like it has no chance of happening, and I see the videos on other channels just grasping at any little bit of hope of the fight since it don't make money. Yeah, that's what it is. Like, Crawford-Spence is a good fight, a great matchup on paper. It's a fight that boxing fans deserve because they've had to suffer and deal with a lot of bullshit all these years. I don't really care if it happens, but it's not about me. It's about the boxing fans. So for their sakes, I want it to happen. But I told you guys a long time ago. Like it's July. We're about to go into August. Still no announcement. Ali Urshad says, True School. I watched your Danny versus Thurman live stream video. It was a good one of your Danny. Yeah, my boy. That was with me and my best friend Paul Martinez. He's a huge Danny Garcia fan. That's his favorite fighter. It was hard to kind of watch the fight because this man's going crazy over everything Danny does. But it was a great time. Shame how that fight on his own end of the way it did. Madrimov is a really underrated fighter. Very good. Very good fight. I like Madrimov. BT, you don't change styles in 1 or 2 camps. Shaw got the same sparring. The difference is he got kicked out of the Reese camp for what he did, while Philip got touched up. Philip Hrgovic literally was the reason that the David Haye Tyson Fury fight got canceled. He sent home David Haye with a big ass cut over his eye in sparring, and the dude didn't want to fight no more. Then he had the toe injury. You know, don't stop that. Stop it, champ. Stop it. Yeah, Ray Beltran's still boxing. He just fought on a pro box card. He lost to a young prospect named Cesar Frances, who I don't know a whole lot about, but I hear good things about him, so I gotta check that fight out. Joe Morgan, what's good, Gerald? He says, BT, great to be back, young brother. For some reason, I'm looking forward to Garcia versus Benavidez fight. It might be entertaining. What you take? I'm actually right there with you. I really think that this Saturday for boxing is the best boxing Saturday of this whole month. You know, this month hasn't been the greatest month for boxing this year, but you know, first of all, the fight I really want to pump up is the fight in the UK in the afternoon. You're gonna have, you know, Chris Smith, who's, you know, really strong fighter, trained by Shane McGuigan. You know, right there, he's teetering right there at that world level, looking for a world title shot. His only loss was a couple years ago for the British title when he fought Richard Riakpo. He's taking on somebody that I know very, very well. I know him better than most fighters on earth. One of my only friends in boxing. I don't call people in boxing my friends, but he's one of my only friends in boxing. Isaac Chamberlain's fighting. You know, this is really going to be, for him, the biggest fight he's had in his career since that tough loss to Lawrence Okoli, 4 years ago. And he's changed so much from that fight. Back in that fight, his frame was different. You know, he wasn't as strong as he is now. Had that basic British style. Now, after some years in America and after revamping his team, he's turned into more of like a aggressive, explosive counterpuncher. So you're going to have a guy who's very physically strong in Chris Smith fighting a very strong, aggressive counterpuncher in Isaac Chamberlain. Really good fight this weekend with that. So that'll be in the afternoon. I'll definitely be live for that, because if Isaac Chamberlain wins that fight, I'm going nuts. I'm going crazy if he wins that fight, because that's really like my friend. Chris Smith, Benavidez versus Garcia. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm really excited for that fight, because you got Danny Garcia, who's making his debut fight at 154, taking on a guy in Jose Benavidez, who you got to think, right? Jose Benavidez just had a very, very controversial fight with Manu Torres, in which a lot of people thought Manu Torres beat him. And I gotta say, man, Manu Torres is a better fighter than people realize. I had a chance to watch him spar when I was in Vegas recently, and then I know he fought Hamza Shiraz, and he dropped Hamza Shiraz. So he's a good fighter, Manu Torres. But he had a bad performance against Manu Torres, and then he had all the excuses about Manu Torres was running around the ring, you know, all this stuff. So it looked really bad. It made him look bad. It made him look like a clown. And so I think Benavidez is going to come more determined. Danny Garcia has more weight on him, and Danny Garcia is not necessarily known as a guy who likes to move around the ring. So I would expect, as Jose Benavidez said in the interview, for there to be a lot of bombs, big-ass bombs to be thrown. Straight up, because these guys both have their own reasons to fight for something. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to argue with you on this one of these days. Yeah, one of these days for sure. One of these days, you know. Hey, look, listen, Stephen Shaw's an American heavyweight, and American heavyweight boxing needs somebody. So I'm not trying to throw salt on Stephen Shaw. I wish him the best with his career. I would like to even have him on here, you know, just to get to know a little bit more about him, because I've seen him. I saw the Joey Dwayko fight with him when he went like 8 rounds and stopped him in the 8th round. But I still think he needs some work before he fights Hrgovic. That's just my opinion. Subriel Matias versus Gary Anton Russell. Who wins if that fight happens? Good fight. I would slightly favor Gary Anton Russell, but I'm saying that not being 100% sold on if he has that stamina in the back half of fights. Because one thing about Matias is strong all the way through the fight. So I love that fight. I like Matias just to fight anybody. You know, like Brandon makes a great point. They need to make Subriel Matias fight Regis Prograis, because Regis Prograis, listen, I like Prograis. I'm a fan of his. I've interviewed him. Great guy. I really don't have a lot of bad to say about him at all. real fighter, one of the realest fighters in boxing. But the reality is, he's doing the same thing that Demetrius Andrade's doing. He's talking about none of these guys want to fight him. None of these guys want to give him the opportunity. But then, when you have a guy like Subriel Matias, a credible guy who's actually ranked higher than him in some of the world sanctioning organizations, he doesn't want to fight him. He doesn't want to go try to explore that option because he wants only the biggest and the best right away. Well, no. It's like boxing is a lot like life, you know. You don't get a chance to get. You don't just get your dream job right away. You don't just make it to where you want to be in life overnight. No. Sometimes you got to work a shitty job at McDonald's or a pizzeria or a underpaying office job to get to where you want to be. And, I'm not saying Matias is those things, but I'm saying, I'm using that as an analogy to say that if he really wants to get to that world title level, he needs to do something other than talk about, who's not fighting him. How about who does want to fight you? Where can I get one of those Andrade A-team hats from Marcellus Davis? I'm not sure, Marcellus, but I like Andrade. I still want to get an A-team hat. I'm still team Andrade Marcellus. I'm very upset with him right now. Very upset with the whole Eubank thing. And you know what's crazy, right? I want to say this. I got a video coming out on this soon, so be on the lookout for it. But I'll say it right here while I'm live. You guys got, a lot of people got mad at me because I went off on Andrade and I was very animated and I was very passionate about the stance that I took because I think, I don't think, I know that he's wasting time calling out Chris Eubank. And I'm going to tell you guys how I know. Because I'm the guy that just this past February interviewed Chris Eubank Jr.'s own trainer, Roy Jones Jr., the incomparable Roy Jones Jr. And I asked Roy about why does he feel like Andrade can't get the fights in boxing with all the politics. And then I kind of asked it in a way where, I asked him if Eubank would be open to fight him. And he pretty much told everybody on camera for like a solid minute. He had a whole minute answer where he pretty much said that Andrade isn't an option. Andrade's not going to get the fight. Andrade's not going to make enough money for Eubank to want to fight him. So don't take my word for it because my word don't mean anything. Take Roy Jones' word for it from when I interviewed him. You guys will see it. I got a video coming out on it soon with the clip. But you can go look it up. Go look up on YouTube. Go look up Roy Jones Jr. Type in like Roy Jones Jr. Demetrius Andrade politics, and the interview me and him did should pop up. Somebody asked, a couple people asked about Andy Cruz. It's unfortunate what happened to Andy Cruz. Him not being able to not come to America. Him being able to not, provide a better life for his family. Andy Cruz is one of the greatest amateurs ever in the history of boxing. 2 gold medals. He was pretty much Keyshawn Davis' father in the amateurs. Keyshawn Davis could never get over that Andy Cruz hump in the amateurs. He mastered the art of how to win an amateur boxing match. So it's really unfortunate what happened to him because, he was going to have the perfect setup in America. He was going to train Ismael Salas, world-renowned trainer, great trainer. I feel like his transition was going to be smooth, but now not only is he not going to be able to defect from Cuba and compete in having a professional boxing career, he's now been banned from competing in all sports in Cuba, and now his life's going to be really, really difficult, more difficult. BT, was Al Heyman planning this Thurman fight from the get-go? It's possible. I mean, I'll never put it past a smart, shrewd businessman like Al Heyman. But, I don't know. There's no way for me to really know that. I don't think so. But if the WBC's just making Keith Thurman the number one mandatory, not mandatory, but the number one contender out of nowhere, then, I can't doubt that. Yeah, it's a good fight. It's a good card. Getting destroyed by Shiraz is a bad look. That guy was getting schooled by Bradley Skeet. Bradley Skeet. Tao Skeet. BTL text him and see when he's free, and let's get him on here. It might need to be pre-recorded. He works a lot right now, but let's arrange that. Everyone else sleeping on him, y'all will see. Well, okay. Well, look. I'm an equal opportunity channel, man. Just because Philip Hurwick's my guy, I like him, doesn't mean I'm gonna sit here and be biased. I want to learn. about fighters that sometimes I overlook, and Stephen Shaw would be one of those guys that I know who he is. I've seen him fight, but I wouldn't mind seeing him come on here and learning more about him, and sometimes you have to get a small loan of $1 million before you become successful. Preach it, BT. That's right. I could use a small loan of $1 million. Anybody know anybody who got a small loan of $1 million that knows anybody who can give me a small loan of $1 million? BT, but with Andrade, he actually entered negotiations with Johnny Beck. He just knows he'll get zero credit and is trying to see if a better option is here. He is 34. Time is low for Andrade. No, I get why he did it. I'm not knocking him. I know why he did it. I'm just saying, like, it's just not a good look, and it's really frustrating. As far as the negotiations, look, I already know he's not gonna get a lot of money. The minimum purse bid for Andrade versus Johnny Beck is like $200,000. I'm gonna say they'd be lucky. They'd both be lucky if that purse bid gets to $500,000. And Bob Arum, because I think Bob is the only one that's gonna put a purse bid on that fight. If that purse bid exceeds $500,000, I'll be shocked. So I get it. He's not gonna make a lot of money from that fight in comparison to what he would make, what he's used to making, or what he would make fighting these guys like Eubank. I get all that. Like I get all that. But y'all gotta understand where I'm coming from. Okay, Demetrius Andrade is a guy that doesn't really have a leg to stand on right now. We know that all odds are against him. We know that Canelo doesn't want to fight him. We know that Charlo doesn't want to fight him. We know Munguia doesn't want to fight him. We know that Dave Benavidez, his manager, priced himself out of the fight. Okay, and I've acknowledged those things. I've gone on a one-man crusade to let the world know about these things and held my ground. But you can only focus on what you can control. You can only focus on what you can control. You can only focus on, what value and what momentum you can create for yourself. And listen, if I'm Andrade at this point, beat Johnny Beck and then try to explore options after that, and then fight. Just cherry pick dudes. Just straight cherry pick dudes. Fight 154 pounders. Knock them out. Just create a demand. Stay relevant. That's all I'm saying. Don't sit here. Don't sit here and sing the same tune. Okay? Knock these guys out. Do as many interviews, and they don't gotta be. I want to purposes. They don't gotta be with me, because a lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, True School BT, you just got mad because he didn't give you an interview." No, I made that point to say that he should just go on more platforms, whether it be mine or someone with more subscribers than me, or different TV networks. I'm just saying he should promote himself more so that he can stay in everybody's face, and so that people can warm up to him, and because he's got a good personality. I think he's a marketable person as far as how he is. He's a likable guy, but he just doesn't really do a whole lot of, yeah. I apologize to Canelo fans. Was weird. I was just mad, man. You say stupid shit when you're mad. But truthfully, like Canelo Alvarez, whether you hate it, listen, I can't sit here and make Canelo exposed by Bivol t-shirts and shit on Canelo as much as I have over the years. And then when Andrade does something that's foolish, if I don't call it out, then that's not fair. You gotta be fair. Let me see. Andrade is my dude, but his business decisions are fucking up his career. Yes, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When you call out a popular guy that you know will not fight you, do you know what that is? That is a definition of clout chasing. Well, not always. If the popular guy, because popularity and a fighter's actual ability are two different things. Like one guy can be popular and one guy cannot be popular, but they could be on the same level as far as ability. So that's not true. If the popular guy was in a position to fight you and the fight was going to have great historical significance for the sport of boxing, and he refused to fight you, then he does deserve criticism. I.e., Canelo Andrade situation. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about that because that's been beaten like a dead horse on this channel, but yeah, there are a lot of fighters who do clout chase. Damn, why do they ban him from all sports? Because he tried to escape the country. And it's a communist country, so they have their own ways about doing things, and he tried to defect. How can you not be mad at Boo Boo and guys like him and Maul A lot of these guys who can't be bothered taking on top fight opposition, yeah. It is what it is, man. Yo, BT, I like Frank Martin a lot. I watched his last fight with your pops on live stream, but Frank owes Robert Guerrero money, LOL, JK. He's the only ghost in boxing. Not Frank the Ghost Martin. That's funny. Actually, Frank Martin and Robert Guerrero, they both owe Styles P, the rapper, some money. That's the real ghost. So make sure they give the royalties to the real ghost, Styles P. But no, Frank Martin's a good fighter. You know, I really would like to see Frank Martin. The two ideal fights for him, I would like to see. The first one I would like to see the most. I made a video about it already this year. Would be him fighting Michel Rivera. No, not Michel Rivera. Raul Valenzuela. You know, it's two young, explosive, hard-punching southpaw undefeated fighters on PBC. I feel like that's the fight they should be looking to make. But I just think that PBC, what they're gonna do is they're gonna keep recycling opponents, and they're gonna fatten both these guys' records up and make sure that these guys get more hype and more notoriety over the next 12 to 18 months. And then I think, you know, when the time is right, both these guys be fed to Gervonta Davis. You know. My man Jeff Campbell says they screwed my boy Boots again. Yeah, if anything, they should have made him the WBC mandatory. You're actually right, Jeff. I've been babbling for 71 minutes. No, 71 minutes. And you're right. That's the real travesty in all this. The real travesty isn't even that Thurman is number one. The real travesty is that Boots isn't number one, because this is a guy in Boots that has earned his way to deserving the fight. You know, he's not just been winning. Because look, you guys know, like I know, when it comes to this boxing, it's not just about winning. It's not always about winning. It's also about how you win. You know, obviously the win is the most important thing, but if you can win and do it in an impressive fashion on a consistent basis, then you're gonna take precedence over somebody who's just grinding out victories. You know, and Jaron Ennis has looked nothing short of spectacular every time he's fought. From the switch hitting to the power punching to the counter punching to just everything. He's got every skill that a boxer could possibly possess under the sun. He is the most skilled welterweight in the world. Doesn't mean he's the best welterweight in the world just yet, because he has to beat the guys to prove that. But he is the most skilled. Nobody has more tools in the toolbox than Jaron Ennis. You know, champ. You know. This is the only way right here that Keith Thurman could become the number one contender. Someone slid Mauricio Sulaiman one of those nice nice envelopes. You know, and the check, and Mauricio Sulaiman went to a nice steakhouse and worked on his stomach a little bit more, and that's what it is. That's the only way that's the only way you could rationalize Keith Thurman becoming more contender in July of 2022. You know, BT, it'll go like this. He'll fight Johnny Beck for like $250K. If he beats him, 0 credit, as he beat a green 12-0 guy. If he loses, the end. It's a tight position. Even with that, he enters negotiations. You're not wrong. I never said, listen, all this stuff, I know that people that don't like Andrade are gonna do to Johnny Beck how they did Liam Williams. Like I never once disagree with anybody's points. My only issue with Andrade is that he's not being proactive, okay? Cause in my eyes, calling out a guy whose trainer already said 4 months ago that the fight is not happening under any circumstances, and you still do it while you have a mandatory dude, it's looked at in bad taste in my eyes, you know? That's why I went off the way I did. But if we're being honest, you're right. Milo, this is where the fight that should be happening. We know Jamal versus Andrade should happen. They do need each other. You know, Jamal Charlo, really, to me, I'm going to tell you guys this. The middleweight division, it's crazy what's happened to our beloved middleweight division in boxing. Because the middleweight, aside from being the heavyweight champion, you got to remember, middleweight is one of the original 8 weight classes. So back in like the 30s and the 40s and back in those days when there wasn't so many weight classes, outside of being the heavyweight champion of the world, the next best thing, the next most famous man in boxing was the middleweight champion. And now the middleweight division is literally one of the worst, most stagnant divisions in boxing. It's a disgrace, and there's a lot of disgraceful behavior going on in the middleweight division. I think the biggest disgrace in all this is Jaime Munguia. Xanafer Promotions and Golden Boy have done their best to protect him. And they don't want no smoke for him. After him, Jamal Charlo. We know that he don't want no smoke. And then, Golovkin. He's been, a lot of these guys. But, Andrade now, you can add him to the list, just because of how he's acting. But listen, he beats Johnny Beck to me. If he fights Johnny Beck and beats him, then I'm treating that win like freaking Muhammad Ali beating Sonny Liston, because there's a lot of people that are saying that Johnny Beck's going to beat the crap out of Andrade. Like, Andrade still ain't one of the best fighters in the world. So that's why that's another reason I want the fight to happen, because I'm sick of hearing from everybody that Johnny Beck could beat Andrade. If the money was the same as the other Mandos, do you think he'd have a problem fighting Johnny Beck? If the money was the same as the other mandatories, as far as Quigley and these guys, I don't know. I can't say. I would like to say he would fight if the money was the same as when he fought Quigley. Yes. Liam Williams. Yes. But I don't know. Listen. Johnny Beck is a dangerous opponent, and one thing I know about boxing, in this boxing world and how it works, is that if a fighter's beating motherfuckers up in the gym, if he's beating guys up in the gym, if he's making an impression in sparring, these things spread. These news travels. If you want to find out about anybody in boxing and you're involved in boxing, whether it be a media person, whether it be a manager, whether it be a fighter, all you gotta do is know the right people and just ask around, and you can find out whatever you want. In your opinion, how many more fights before Ennis becomes a world champion? How many more fights before? I'm gonna say one. I'm gonna be optimistic and I'm gonna say one, because I think his next fight will be a step up. I think there will be I think whether the fight happens or not, there will be a resolution to this whole Crawford and Spence thing by the end of this year, whether it happens or doesn't happen. And so I'm thinking, either belts are gonna fragment or something like that. I'm gonna say one fight. There is one guy calling for the Boots fight, Speedy Ellis fight. Yeah, I love that fight. He gets on PBC. He's a name. He's a guy that a lot of guys have ducked in the past and don't want any smoke with. I would love to see him fight Speedy Rashidi Ellis. Absolutely. All these guys, my main man Hyro. Shout out to my man Hyro. Hyro Productions. The guy that makes all those funny compilations on the channel. This is him. He says all these guys think they're God, like they can't be touched. They all say, I'm God, Allah, Buddha, I'm all. you over here quoting Get Rich or Die Trying. Boxing Gems, shout out to you, champ. Hope all is well with you. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Boxing Gems, one of the best channels on YouTube. Hope all is well with you, champ. I would love to see Andrade versus Benavidez, must-see TV. I would too. But see, that even goes back to now. Now we got even more issues, because I think even with Benavidez, as I made a video about it recently, I think even with Benavidez, there's layers to why he can't get fights. I made a video recently kind of highlighting some things that happened 4 years ago with Benavidez, when he tried to leave Al Heyman and he tried to sign with Top Rank, and then he had to return the $250,000 signing bonus with Top Rank, and then he stayed with Samson. And I had this theory that the reason why David Benavidez can't get any of the fights he actually wants is because I still think that Al Heyman and Samson are kind of like punishing him for trying to leave. I think boxing is that petty that they would do something like that. Yeah, they'll pay him and they'll let him say he's a Mexican monster and things like that, but I really do believe that. Prime GGG was a real boogeyman, knocking all the top guys out. He made Canelo drop his title because Canelo was scared to fight him. Prime Andrade was a cherry picker and a Canelo clout chaser. So, don't get me wrong, I like Golovkin, and Golovkin did beat some top contenders at 160, but he did beat up on a lot of 154 pounders as well. Yeah, good fight. Cody Crowley. He beat Abdul Kakarov and he's been getting some good wins, so I wouldn't mind seeing him get a shot. Okay, yeah. I mean, if you feel like he had it gifted to him, hey, that's your opinion. I mean, Crowley Well, you got a point, actually. You actually have a point because Crowley beat the guy that was #1 in the IBF for years in Abdul Kakrov. So you actually have a great point there, Duck. You're actually right. I'm going to make a video about that. Jaron Ennis versus Cody Crowley. Make that fight. BT Sampson is protecting Benavidez. He's making crazy money for fighting these 40-year-olds. They're building a star. They are building a star. But I don't think he's someone you necessarily need to protect at this stage of his career anymore. Like he's a top guy. He's been champion multiple times. I really do think that the reason why he can't get fights is bigger than just what meets the eye. I think it can all be traced back to 2018 when he signed with Top Rank, and then he had to return that $250,000 signing bonus, and he left Al Heyman. That's what I think, truthfully. Shout out to everybody here. It's your boy BT, Brennan Taylor, the untouchable True School Sports Empire. It's the afternoon, evening show. We're here talking that world-class boxing content. Wanted to say what's up to you guys and just give my boxing thoughts out there while before I go ahead and handle the rest of my day. Make sure you guys continue to support the channel and definitely do that. We have 2 live fight reactions on Saturday. One for Isaac Chamberlain versus Chris Smith, and the other for Danny Garcia versus Jose Benavidez Jr. So be on the lookout for all that and more on Saturday. Who do you think gave Liam Williams the better beating, Eubank or Andrade? Eubank. I actually was one of the few people that went to the Andrade versus Liam Williams fight because it was right up the road down here in Hollywood, Florida, at the Hard Rock. And Liam Williams was a very determined guy that night. He was willing to go to any lengths to win that fight with Andrade. Elbows, tackles, DDTs, everything. You know what? Speaking of DDTs, it's been a long time since we heard from our main man, the big bad booty daddy. So Scott Steiner, put these holes in the Steiner recliner.
The bump and grind. And it's only a matter of time because he called me the big bad booty daddy.
The big bad booty daddy. Yeah, but no, Liam Williams was doing wrestling moves, trying his best to just make it a dirty fight. And Andrade, I thought, for the most part, did a good job of, boxing and staying composed. Because it's very difficult when you're a fighter in the ring and you got someone elbowing you and tackling you and doing all these different, dirty tactics to stay composed. And he did that. And a lot of people criticize him and say, oh, well, Liam Williams this and Liam Williams that. Liam Williams literally won like 3 rounds, max. 10-2, 9-3 Andrade. Opataya is ducking the rematch of Marius. I'm not a fan of that dude. I know he got the win in show hard, but it was so painfully obvious that if it was 15 rounds, Breedis would have won. I actually agree with you on that. I said that in my video. If this was the 15-round era, Jay Opataya would have went to sleep in the last 3 rounds. He barely had anything left to give in those last 3 rounds of that fight. As far as your comment about him ducking the rematch, I don't know if you could really say that just yet because he has to get surgery, so he's not gonna box for a while. Everything they say Johnny Beck does in sparring, Andre been doing that for the past 10 years. Exactly. So if Johnny, I don't really hear a lot of guys doing that. If you're saying that Johnny Beck does the same thing in sparring that Andre does, and that's great because that means you're putting him on the same, playing the same tier as Andre, or around the same level. Not a lot of guys can do what Andre's done in sparring, beating up on top contenders and world champions in sparring. So, if one guy has done it for 10 years and another guy has done it for over the course of a 4-year, 3-year pro career, 4-year, 5-year pro career, then let's have them fight each other. What a fight that will be. A top USA Olympian, amateur world champion taking on a top Olympian from Kazakhstan. One guy is one of the most adaptable fighters in boxing. The other guy is, hard puncher, really good jab, moves his head off the line really well. It's a lot of things in that fight. BT, these fangirls only say their side of the street when it comes to Spence and Crawford. Yeah, well, because Errol Spence is the one that started all that language. As far as yeah. Honestly, look, I'm making it a point on this channel. On this channel, I'm not acknowledging these boxing politics no more. these fights can get done, guys, and I want anybody who watches my channel to get into a habit. We need to stop talking like the promoters, and we need to stop talking like the managers, because at the end of the day, when these ACH direct deposits clear and hit these fighters' accounts, we're not gonna see a dime of it. So we shouldn't be talking about, you know, money and stuff like the way we do, you know. So these big cross promotional fights, whether it be Bivol versus Zordo, Crawford versus Spence, any fight you can think of, you know, Fury versus Joshua, any of these fights, they can all get done. I think we need to do a better job of just not, you know, feeding into the BS here on YouTube. Do you know why Rashidi Ellis was so inactive after beating Alexis Rocha? Him versus Virgil Ortiz would have been a good fight, but now Rashidi has left the Golden Boy, so I can't see it happening. My belief is that Golden Boy shelved him because he beat one of the guys that's their darlings. Alexis Rocha is one of the guys that's their darlings. You know, they had their own plans for Rocha, and when he beat them, it just made, I don't know. Maybe they felt like they couldn't make no money off Rashidi Ellis, so they said let's just put him on the shelf and let's get Rocha back to winning ways, and they put him very low on the priority list. But I know for a fact that Golden Boy wasn't really interested in making those fights happen in house, because I remember when I asked about Golden Boy fighters, the welterweights, because they have a lot of welterweights fighting in house, the people from Golden Boy got mad at me, you know. And they only made oh, never mind. Why are you complaining about if it was 15 rounds, he would have won? Nobody ever says if Charlo versus Rumbleside won. Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. Andrade does it to the higher level. That's what the difference is. Okay, if he does it to a higher level than Johnny Beck, then just do it. Just fight him and just do it in the ring. Just do it in the ring. I'm picking him to win if they fight. Like, I'm picking Andrade all the time until he loses. Fury, Andrade, Crawford, all these guys, Sinisa Estrada, Chocolatito, I'm picking them every fight. I make that very clear. But still, just fight. Just like, what's the big deal? Everybody here, make sure you guys go subscribe to my main man across the pond, Punch Perfect Boxing. He's on the rise right now. One of the hottest upcoming young YouTubers in the game right now. Go give him a sub. Loves the sport and really someone to watch out for. See, you got a lot of good comments. We're getting a lot of good comments today. I appreciate this, guys. Let's tell the truth, Mr. Vegas. What's the truth, champ? Lay it on me straight. Fanboys talk about that because, fanboys talk about that because they like that the fair fighter is protected. That's corny. Then why even like boxing? Because like when you really strip boxing down to what it's all about, boxing takes us back to our primal instincts as human beings. You know, when two cavemen wanted to fight for a piece of food, when two cavemen wanted one piece of meat, and there was two cavemen, and they didn't want to share, they had to duke it out. There was a dispute, they had to duke it out. So it's like, I watch boxing just to see who's the best, and I watch boxing to see these great high-level world-class athletes, the best athletes in the world, because boxers are the best athletes in the world, in my opinion. Because to do what they do in the ring, someone punching you with your reputation, dignity on the line, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough, arduous sport. So if you don't want to see like these top guys fight each other, I don't understand what the issue is. All these fights can be made. These side of the streets are just duck tactics, or these more for Andrade than Canelo. Yeah, absolutely. The Samson Luka was talking about we need $7 million just to start the negotiation process. It's garbage. My question is, where was all this pressure to fight Yamando when it was Munguia? Everyone was quiet as a church mouse, and no pressure was put on him to fight Boo Boo. Wrong. Well, maybe not from other people, but when it comes to me, you're wrong. You gotta remember, I'm the guy that when I actually was in the face of Golden Boy Promotions, I asked these questions. I asked these tough questions, and they didn't have answers. There was pressure put. You can go check my archives. When I asked Eric Gomez last December about why Munguia isn't fighting Andrade, and he says, well, Andrade needs to make us an offer, but they're the mandatory challenger. It's corny. Andrade should just beat Johnny Beck and the WBC force Charles unify with Andrade to get. Yes, champ. That's what I'm saying. The fight itself isn't gonna get him what he wants, but to me, I look at the Johnny Beck fight if he can win, which I think he can, although it will be a tough fight. I look at it as a gateway fight. Okay, you don't get the money you want right now. Okay, we get it, but you get a win against an undefeated, hyped up prospect who is a former Olympian. You beat him. You can leverage it out into bigger things. I don't see why. The curse of Demetrius Andrade extends to his cousin Ellis. Those guys are too good for their own good. Too skillful, seasoned, and experienced against the elites. Yeah, absolutely. I even asked Rashidi. I asked Rashidi about that when he was on here. You know, so you're not lying about that. Go watch the last 2 Johnny Beck fights. The dude got mad peoples on his bench. Okay, well then VADA test his ass. Then you just VADA test his ass. You know? Like, we can solve these problems. These are all solvable problems. Look, man, fuck Crawford and Spence. Crawford has been inactive, and so has Spence. Canelo unified all titles while Spence didn't fight at all. Crawford really got a fight at the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say F them, even though like it'd be very easy for me to. I'm trying to not say that because at the end of the day, these guys are still high-level prize fighters. And the fight needs to happen, not for my sake, but for the sake of many other boxing fans. So, I'll be optimistic. It's his choice. It's his choice. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with him. It's his choice. That's why I'm so hard on him right now. The best is why I watch it. It's sad that they ignore legacy and competition. Munguia was scared to fight Andrade. The press protected Munguia. This shows Andrade isn't scared. No, I don't think Andrade is scared. I just think Andrade is... scared isn't the word. I think he's just not thinking things through. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Eric Gomez didn't want no smoke. He left. He left. He said I have to get away from this guy. And it wasn't just Eric Gomez. Roberto Diaz. When I asked him questions about Andrade, he walked off the interview. At the when I interviewed Roberto Diaz at the MGM Grand, when I was at the Devin Haney Jojo Diaz press conference, he walked off. Eddie Hearn, when I asked about Canelo fighting Andrade, said, "Oh well, Canelo's not ducking, but we want to see him go to 175, So come on, man. Yeah, look, listen, I'm an Andrade fan and I'm a Johnny Beck. I like both of them. I'm a fan of both. They're actually 2 of my favorite middleweights. Because for those of you that don't know, I didn't just start making videos about Johnny Beck. I've been covering Johnny Beck since he was like 6-0 or 5-0, since 2018. So I've always liked Johnny Beck. There are a lot of Johnny Beck fans that have come out the woodwork. Like all of a sudden, they didn't care about Johnny Beck at all, and now they care. Boxing is becoming anti-sport. I can't think of any other athletic competition whose end goal isn't to determine who the best is. It's it's become an anti-sport. It's literally what Steve Kim said it was in his famous quote where he said, boxing is a business that masquerades itself as a sport, and it's to a point where sometimes like I go to these fight. I'm gonna tell you guys this. I go to these fight cards. I'll be in Vegas. I'll be in New York City, and I hear these promoters and managers talk about boxing, and like I understand it's business. I understand there's money to be made. I get all that. Like, trust me, I get it. It's not easy to make money in boxing, so money should be a major focus for anybody who makes a living in this sport. But it's still a sport, and sometimes with the way boxing is discussed by promoters and even the fighters, it feels like boxing's lost a lot of its soul. I wonder why the WBO never ordered Crawford and Ortiz to fight each other. Do you think Ortiz is avoiding Crawford like Munguia is to Andrade? We gotta keep it consistent after all. Well, it's good you asked that question. Now, I know when I had another interview with Golden Boy, I interviewed a Golden Boy matchmaker Roberto Diaz at the Devin Haney Jorge Linares. Was it Devin Haney Jorge Linares? Yeah, Devin Haney Jorge Linares press conference, and I remember I asked him because at that time Virgil had just become #1 in the WBO, And I said, hey, would you want to make that fight happen? And he said, yeah. He actually said, yeah, he'd like to make that fight happen. But it was kind of like a answer where he said, yes, but, you know, we're just going to worry about, you know, whoever he was fighting back then. So, yeah, I think for Golden Boy fighters, whether it be Ryan, whether it be Munguia, whether it be Virgil, you kind of have to be of the mindset of like, okay, if these guys are making any money or have any sort of real meaning and value to Golden Boy Promotions, Golden Boy is going to wait for the most favorable opportunity to snatch a world title. And the most favorable opportunity for Virgil Ortiz to get a world title at 147 is not fighting Terence Crawford. So I'm going to go with yes. You know? But what I'm going to say is this. Golden Boy Promotions better watch out, because if Virgil ain't careful, Michael McKinson might come and mess everybody's plans up. I sense nervous energy from the Andrade fanboys. I'm not nervous. I'm not a fanboy either. He's one of my favorite fighters, but I wouldn't call myself a fanboy. You know, he's someone that I think the world of, and I think that he should be afforded the chance to fight in these big fights. It's only because he's on some bullshit, and it's only because that I'm such a big fan of his that I'm so pissed off and disappointed. Keith just needs to do Box Talk 101, my man Freddie. Make sure you go subscribe to one of the fastest growing channels. He gonna pass me in subscribers soon. I swear to God, this guy's got so many subscribers now. Every time I go on his channel, he got like 5,000 new subscribers. But shout out to my man Freddie doing this thing. He says Keith just needs to do like his hair and go away. That's how you feel, man. No love for one time. See how you are, Freddie. Johnny Beck is an extremely good prospect. I got him winning against 98% of these guys. It'll be an amazing fight. And Andrade did enter negotiations, so there's no ducks here. Andrade never once said no. Yeah, but he never really once said yes either. Like the handful of time we've seen him, when he was asked in the Fight Hype interview, he said, he was like, Johnny Mac, that's what you guys want to see. And then he called out Eubank. So that he just doesn't have the energy of a guy that wants that fight. That's all. Promoters ruin boxing. People want to watch a fight more than any other form of competition. That's a fact. Oh, did promoters ruin boxing? Yeah, I mean, I would say unwilling promoters ruin boxing, because, yeah, like, promoters have always had their agendas, but like when Don King and Bob Arum were around, they worked together because working together works. Working together works. These guys work together to make the best, biggest fights happen for the fans, for the consumers, because they knew that if the sport won, if the fans got the best product possible, then as an extension of putting the best product out there and then making the best fights, they would win. So, yeah, you're right. Unwilling promoters, I'll say. He says, I think people should bet the retirement check that fight between McKinson and Ortiz isn't going to go the distance. Well, we'll see, man. I got my unbiased opinion of my unbiased opinion, because I like Michael McKinson. I'm a fan of him because he's the underdog. I like his story. My unbiased opinion is I think Virgil stops him in 8 rounds. Now, my heart says, come on, Michael McKinson, let's get it done, champ. Floyd Mayweather ruined modern day boxing. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I don't want to say that he did. I never wanted to say that he did, but I almost feel like he did. I almost feel like he did in some ways, because he did what was best for his career and it worked out well for him. But the after effects have been horrible, because now all these fighters want to be Floyd. All these fighters want the right business deals when they haven't put in any work to have any leverage at the negotiating table. And yeah, so in that regard, yeah, all these fighters that say, like, you know, let's build these fights up into pay-per-view fights, you know, that stems from Floyd. I'm sorry. Harold says, I'm sorry, but fuck Crawford for me. When I mean Crawford, I mean his fans. Like, Crawford beats Yeah, I'm not gonna say that guy's name because he doesn't deserve to be talked about. Spence and the Black Picasso. Yeah, like these guys. Look, listen. God bless those guys and what they got going on their channels. You know, I'm a Terence Crawford fan too, but I'm not gonna sit here and fanboy for one fighter over the other and make a whole channel. I mean, okay, maybe I shouldn't talk because I am the guy that named this channel Canelo Exposed by Bivol for 2 weeks, but you know, it's just like fan base, like the Spence fan base and the Crawford fan base to me are equally bad. I'm not gonna put one over the other. Eubanks does bring a country and money. It's also a name. Johnny Beck should fight to build a name to make a fight worth the risk. It was tough for Andrade to beat an unproven fighter and get no credit. But yeah, but then it could also be a case, my man, Love Guy 84. Hey, God bless you, Love Guy 84. Jesus, the King of Kings. I'm going to church in like an hour and a half. Anyway, it could also be a scenario, my man, where Andrade beats Johnny Beck, who's 12-0 now. He'd be 12-1 if Andrade beat him, and then let's say Johnny Beck becomes world champion after that. Maybe Johnny Beck goes on to become world champion. You never know. I think wins age well in boxing all the time. The best thing that happened in boxing recently was the World Box Super Series to me. Yet it died due to lack of support. Us fans need to show support to such things, but many would rather play man fan. And I'm in agreement with you, Duck. And it's unfortunate that the World Boxing Super Series really isn't a thing anymore. And I don't know if it's all the way discontinued, but I haven't heard anything about it in a while. That's why you always hear me, Duck, say that I'm championing this Pro Box TV app, the Pro Box Promotions TV app. It's $1. For those that don't know, Pro Box TV, it's a new promotional company. It started by the former CEO of Mike Tyson Productions, Gary Jonas. Also involved with the company are guys like Roy Jones Jr., Antonio Tarver, Manuel Marquez, Paulie Malignaggi. And now they got Miguel Cotto involved, and they pride themselves on making competitive fights. The streaming app is $1.99 a month, $18 for the year. It's the best value in sports entertainment. I've had a chance to watch like 3 of their 4 cards. They've all been pretty good, pretty well matched. They got some good prospects on there, guys that you should be keeping an eye out for, like Najee Lopez. So yeah, it's definitely worth the money. To me, if I had to pick one app to have in boxing, that'd be the one, Pro Box TV. So I think every boxing fan should get behind that. Even when Pavlik got beat by Hopkins, he lost everything. A loss ruins a fighter just like it did Kovalev. A loss ruins not always. That's not true. Because Roman Cholatito Gonzalez got knocked out cold by Sisuke Sorangvasai, came back, became world champion, and everyone still loves the guy. Same thing goes for Manny Pacquiao, came back. It's just it's few fighters that have the mental fortitude and skills to come back after devastating losses. It's hard. It is hard. I gotta say, it is hard. It's not easy to get knocked out cold, lose that aura of invincibility, and then become world champion again. It takes a really, really, really special individual to do that. Yeah, I agree with that. K Diamond. People need to be grateful for the fights that are set, at the fights that are happening. Shakur, Joshua, Shields, Lopez. And let's even start. Listen, I mean, all those are good fights too. Let's just even start this weekend, right? This weekend, in my humble opinion, is the best boxing Saturday of the month. Isaac Chamberlain and Chris Miller-Smith will be a really good cruiserweight fight. 2 guys who are teetering on that fringe world level. Winner of this fight potentially gets a title shot next. Then you got Jose Benavidez versus Danny Garcia. I know the names don't sound the most intriguing, but they're both good cards. I am honestly really high on Virgil Ortiz. He may just be the best at 147. It's not a stretch to say that, even though I think he's a little bit coddled and protected. Well, I'm not gonna call him protected. I listen. People think that this fight with McKinson is a cherry pick. It's not a cherry pick. I like this fight. I think it's a good fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Virgil deals with his first young undefeated fighter of his career, who also just happens to be a southpaw. And this will give us a little bit of insight as to where Virgil's going. You know what I'm saying? But listen, guys, on that note, look, it's 5:30 p.m. here on the East Coast. I gotta go to church in like an hour and a half. I'm tired. because it's kind of hot out here. I should put the fan on. That's on me. That's my fault. But you know, on that note, guys, you take care. I'm gonna try to do these lives. I'm gonna try to go live every single day from now till Saturday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're going live every day. So we'll be live again tomorrow. I don't know what we'll talk about yet, but we'll be live tomorrow, probably around the same time. And yeah, should be a lot of fun. Until then, you guys continue to check out all the content on the channel. You know, all the Tim Bradley stuff, all the other videos that come out, and just keep supporting, because you know we're growing and we're getting there slowly but surely, and it's a great time to be alive. So yeah, with that being said, you guys take care. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys.